Welcome to the Man Up Podcast, where we challenge men to stop waiting for the storm to pass and face it head on. Today, Terry sits down with adventure captain John Broch to talk grit, grace, brotherhood, and why men can't walk alone. Lock in. This one's for you.
Your purpose ignite, man up, stand up in the dead of the night, in the dirt. We're bound by our word, be stronger in faith, in the tribe of the herd, leave no man behind. We're locked in the fight, man up, right on into the firelit night.
Hey guys, welcome to the ManUp Podcast, where we challenge men to step up, lean in, and live out their calling as husbands, fathers, leaders, and disciples of Jesus. I'm your host, Terry Gwaltney, and today's guest is a man who embodies servant leadership. He's a husband, a father, grandfather, business leader, and he's faced life storms head on, continues to help other men do the same. He's an entrepreneur, a coach. He's a veteran, and now he's a veteran as an adventure captain of the ManUp Adventure Camp. So please welcome my good friend, John Broch, to the show.
Oh, hello.
Hey, John.
How are you? Hey, how are you, sir?
Doing good. Are you recouping? You're about almost a week removed from camp.
Yeah. So we left Sunday around noon, and got to drive back to our place in Kentucky and stayed there for a couple of days, and then went to Greenville, South Carolina, and got home to Florida yesterday. So it's been good, man. It's been a good week.
That's awesome. Well, I want the audience to get to know you just a little bit, everybody in Man Up Nation, kind of see where you're coming from. Now, I just want to lean into your camp experience. I think this year, you won the award for being the furthest away from camp. So we want to talk about whether that was worth it, what you got out of it, what your takeaway was, and how that's impacted your life. But I know your story's a little bit of grit, grace, and growth. So before we dive into all the camp stuff, let's give our listeners a snapshot of who you are. Like, where'd you come from, your family, what shaped your outlook on life, leadership, all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. So right now, my story kind of starts with I'm a recovering roofing company owner, right? So we sold our company last year. I'm a fourth generation roofer. So my great grandpa put the original gold leaf on the Capitol in West Virginia. I was born and raised in the country there in West Virginia. I've had a fun life. I was raised to overcome things, right? So I always think that hillbilly ingenuity always helps you be a better entrepreneur because you learn how to solve problems. I was born with my feet turned in, so I wasn't ever supposed to walk. I had a real bad stutter and a lisp, which I still have it. Went through high school with a lot of adversity, if you will, with that. And then, always knew that there was something more, and I've had some encounters with God throughout the years, and just excited to have been a part of Man Up will be this past week. It was one of the coolest things I've ever been to, one of the most spiritual things I've never been a part of. So it's that's the quick story. That's the Reader's Digest version. So
that's a pretty big statement. One of the neatest experience you've ever been involved in. Unpack that for us a little bit. What places that camp experience in that box for you to say that?
Yeah. So, man, one thing is I can't stop talking about it, right? So even like last night, I went to the gas station just right down by the store there. And, I've always considered myself a man of faith. I've always tried to lean into servant leadership. But I walked in there and there's this guy behind the counter, and I'd seen him a couple of times. It's always just been pleasantries. But last night he said, man, like something about it, like that you walked in with some type of a spirit and like, I want to get closer to God. I'm like, wow, hey, I mean, like, Lord, I've been praying for this every day for the last, I'd say 7, 8 years to put somebody in my path every day. And typically somebody shows up, but that was just, it felt different because, like when you go to ManUp Camp, what I would say for the listeners out there, and we talked about this the other night, it's deer camp, with a revival involved. Like it's incredible, man. It's incredible. And then Saturday night was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. Like I've seen the Spirit move in. I've seen, whole churches and whole revivals actually happen. But when you have almost 400 men there and you just watch the tent actually fill up, like like a wind came in and just filled up the tent, and God showed up, man. Like the Spirit was there, and like you can't unsee that, you can't unfeel that. It's kind of like eating apple pie. Like you can't say I didn't eat it, right? Even though the pan's empty, I know it was there, right? So that's what I mean. Like it was something that you have to experience. I've never experienced anything like that before, so it was awesome.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how it's kind of hard to tell the story of what to expect to somebody that's never been. I mean, let's be real. We live in a society that is not, it's easy for us to become soft. Like 3 days, no TV, on my phone, sleeping on a cot or on the ground. Man, I don't know about that. So trying to, communicate that in a way that draws people in. What's funny is the people that come back, almost all of them that have the experience, they all come back and they bring somebody with them. But how they
Yeah,
tell that story to guys, it's always intriguing to me. And I know you came in the first year and you came in as a captain. And so if you're listening today and you've never been to ManUp, the entire camp's broken down into groups of no more than 10 guys. And those are all led by what we call an adventure captain. And there was close to 50 of those guys this year. So they're responsible for all the pre-communication. They generally recruit the guys that are coming to their camp. They decide as a unit what they're going to bring, how they're going to, go through the weekend. And your case was kind of unique. You came in and you virtually knew. Well, I guess you knew some of the guys, but the majority of the guys you met for the first time at camp. Why did you want to be an adventure captain? And kind of tell us what
yeah.
that experience was like.
Yeah, so what I'd say is, the only person I actually knew was Matt Haney, like, and, just through you and through things that we've, experienced there with that, and then, I was really kinda, like, praying about it, like, "Lord, like, just wanna just lead my lips on whatever that you want me to say and just lead my steps with it." I was actually more excited that I didn't know anybody. It's weird to say that, like, it was more like I could go in with raw and, just peel the onion back, right? Like I could share my actual onion. That's what I call my life as an onion, right? Because it's got a lot of layers. The more you peel it back, the more it stinks, the more it makes you cry. So that's what I say about it, right? But I was able to go in without any expectations and just let God lead the conversation. So what I would say is I actually enjoyed not knowing anybody prior to being there. Um, and then just watching God like open up men's hearts as you're sitting there around the campfire. One of the coolest things, which we've chatted about it, but like one of the coolest things that I really got to experience is like we're sitting there like the first night was Friday night, right? I'm sitting there talking to one of the men there, and we started talking about Peter, and we started talking about like him walking on water and that whole story, and like he had his eyes on Jesus and he started to sink, and which is it's a great sermon all in itself. But I started talking to him like, listen, like the way I've always looked at that story too is there's an underlying tone about being a man and having courage and like stepping out of the boat, like just getting out of the boat and walking on water. Because if you can imagine, like the other 11 in the boat when he gets back, they're all like naysaying him, like, "Why'd you take your eyes off of Jesus?" And about Peter, I'm sure he's like, "I got out of the boat. What'd you do?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
Armchair
so like
quarterbacks.
armchair quarterbacks, right? Like he actually got out of the boat and had courage. So he might have been a coward at times in his life, but the man had actual courage, and was a real man in my mind. And so we started talking about that, and like, 11 out of the 12 that got called in to be disciples. And so we just have this whole fun conversation. And then boom, Terry's up there talking about Peter. I'm like, what is this? And like the guy, like, he like shrugged me, like, did you tell him our conversation? And so like, but this continued to happen like every sermon, man. We'd sit by the campfire and have a conversation. And then 3 minutes of every sermon was like geared towards exactly what it was, exactly the verse. And I'm like, wow, like I've never experienced that before. Like I've been to revivals, I've had conversations. I've never been able to have those campfire talks turn into a sermon that nobody knew about, right? So
Mm.
God was in each one of those campfires and would take that and then go anoint the lips of everybody that was given sermons. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen as far as that goes.
Yeah, I know, golly, it's been a few months ago and we were just talking and you were excited about what God was doing in your life. You were looking for opportunity to be able to speak into the lives of men and trying to figure out what is that going to look like. And I was just sitting there listening to you talking, and it was like, man, this guy needs to be at camp with 10 guys, because what he's looking for is the exact opportunity of what camp really presents. And so, talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit coming in, like, what were you coming into camp like looking for? Maybe like, what did you need when you decided to
Yeah.
come to camp the first time?
Man. So my side was, man, that's a great question. I don't know how to answer that, but I'll say this. You know, the very first thing that we did was really the most impactful, right? Was to meet with the team, to write down what it is that we want to be prayed over, and to write this stuff down. And then you take the hike in, which I told my wife it was 6 miles, which I think it might be a mile, but it was
Felt
a
like
hard
6
day.
miles.
It was like 6 miles, but it was like a mile walk. Yeah, I mean, it was an awesome hike. But then, like right there in the middle, like you just come up and it just opens up, and there's this cross there. And then you get to nail your. I said I get to nail my shame and my guilt and everything to the cross, and then
Mm,
allow God to work. Seeing that and these men that I just met, right? Like personally, got to hug the first time, write this stuff down and just watching the tears stream down their eyes before camp even started. That's what I was there for. Um, you know, and then to watch that work throughout the rest of the week. My personal thing that I wrote down. I'll go ahead and say it. Mine was I've been carrying a lot of shame when it came to what happened with my kids and the background and everything that's happened in my 3 marriages. And now I'm in my 4th marriage, like all this stuff that I was carrying, all this shame. But I think that God uses all that when you get down beside that campfire to talk to these men to share your
mhm,
story and like why that you got to try to make a marriage work, why that it's really important to to love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. And then you go further and says that to return her back to yourself without blemish. Like that's a very hard thing to conceive. And my first 3 marriages, I didn't do very well at that at all. And so I carried a lot of that shame and that guilt and what that carried into the rest of my life. And my
mm,
kids are suffering for that. And so that's what I was able to nail to the cross. That's what I was able to leave there on the ground there. And
mm.
being able to share my story with those men who were also suffering and going through these things as a father and as a husband, and talking about like, hey, listen, I used to treat my wife this way, and I still do this. I do like, and just being able to walk them through biblically, like, hey, this is what it says. Like, how do we get there? And then,
Yeah.
of course, Saturday night, that's what you preached on, and we were talking about that around the campfire. Like again, like God anoints lips, and it's crazy. But to me, that's what I was there for, is to experience and see that. I didn't know that that's what I was there for. I actually went in with an open mind and an open heart. Like, Lord, like, hey, I'm here. Like, just you lead the way and I'll follow. Like, I'm here. Like, I'll go. Like, and that's what I got out of that, was being able to leave my shame there, being able to leave my guilt there, and to have more courage why walk it out. Like last year, I've been on that journey anyway to get to that more courage point. I walked away with it going, you know what? Like, there's no doubt. Like, the last, sermon that you gave to on burn the ships was really impactful. I have to go all in, right? I can't keep one foot on the dock and one foot in the boat. Like, I have to go all in. I'm either on the dock or I'm in the boat, but I got to choose one. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at. So
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. Shame, I think, can be described as the stain of sin. And what's crazy about the stain is that we know that when Jesus forgives us, he says he removes our sin as far as the east is from the west. His mercy is new every morning, that his grace is always more abundant than our sin. Yet we know that at our head, but sometimes it's hard to shake that. I was reading, and guys, I want to encourage you. This is a shameless plug, but the books that we made available at camp this year were all written to be a resource for guys when they come out of camp. We know the weekend is very inspirational, and it's the beginning of a transformational process. That's exactly what it is. It's a process. It's
Yeah.
kind of like the first mile of the journey. I encourage you, if you didn't get a copy of Post 30 or you didn't pick up the book Mentality, I encourage you to do that. But every morning since camp, I read one chapter, or excuse me, I read the first, whatever day I'm on out of Post 30. It's only a couple pages, but I'll read a chapter of Mentality.
Mm.
And the title this morning, I think it was chapter 4, was all on shame. And an interesting thing about shame, because it's such a big issue for guys, is there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is usually associated with an incident, something very specific. But shame, if it's allowed to stay, actually begins to shape our identity. And you begin to see everything through the filter of that. When you look in the mirror, you take it into your relationship with God. You take it in relationship in your marriage and the people that you're leading. It's like those tinted glasses. It filters, everything gets filtered through that, which is really, I think, why the devil wants to hold that over people's heads so much. And we see a lot of that at camp. And I think one of the powerful things is when you can take that many men, come together and just be honest. There's a couple things that happens. One is like, wow, I'm not the only one. And two, just like it says in James 5, I think it's 16, is when you get that out, when you confess it, you pull that thing into the light, you confess those sins one to another, that's where there becomes power, and that shame, begins to lose its sting. And I'm sure you had to see that with 9 or 10 guys in your group, because it seems to be a recurring theme around all the campfires. Was that your experience?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was, guys, and, I don't want to tell the whole stories, right? But because I think a
Sure.
lot of this is in confidence, but like some of the guys were talking about, like, they used to hit their wives and they used to be alcoholics and addicts and all these things. And you're sitting there going, and they were just carrying all this guilt and all this shame because of it. And it's like, listen, like, yes, it's terrible, right? But the only way forward is through Christ. And like really just breaking that down. But me having that conversation, knowing it intellectually, if you will, right? Knowing it logically, knowing it, I've read it a gazillion times and take you right to the verses of it, knowing it's inscribed in my heart, I never applied it until I started talking about it and like try to walk these men through that. And that's when I felt the guilt and the shame just kind of just release, that, and, like, when it started to happen, like, I could start to feel it. Like, I just couldn't realize, like, God, like, what are you doing inside of me right now? And then the cool thing that we have at the camp is the Cracker Chapel, right? So I just went over there, man, and just gave it all. Like, I don't know how long I was in there, but, and for those that are listening, just like you go in there, you start talking. And it's your prayer cord, it's your prayer box, and you literally just give it all to God. And like that was the moment when I really felt that shame come off of me. And just being able to tell part of my story was, like in my first marriage, my first wife cheated on me, and by all means of the world, everything that I did could be justified, but I didn't follow what the biblical standard was. And that set out the wake for the rest of my life, right? So I could have left, right? Because there's anger and there's hurt and there's all that stuff there. Or I could have reconciled, right? I chose option 3, which isn't an option. So I stayed and I treated her really, really bad, right? And I said really, really mean and bad things to her. And sure, the world will justify it all day. And I did for many years. And, I'd come over, I'd been able to overcome that a few years ago, but just knowing that God was able to line up all these breadcrumbs behind me for me to go back and say, that was the moment that you put all this hurt into the rest of your life with your family and with your kids. And then that begat to the next thing, and to the next marriage, and then to the third marriage. And then, I don't know how deep you want me to go with that, but like, because of those decisions, my children are no longer in my life. So, but anyway, so I told you all that to tell you this. I don't think that we go through all this stuff just to go through all this stuff. And I was able to share that story with all these men. And now that, like I've been with my wife since 2012 now, and we've been, married for 11 years, and it's a wonderful God-focused marriage, but what I would say is that I finally figured it out, right? God kind of smacked me in the face, but it's weird to take a guy that's been divorced 3 times and start giving marriage advice. But I think that I could take all the dark stuff and bring it into the light and say, this is why that you want to follow the biblical principles, is because you don't want this to happen to your family and kids.
Yeah.
And and that's the burden that kind of got released this past weekend, right? It was like that shame was gone. I was able, like, I've shared it a few times with people, but I was actually just there able to weep and share that with
Mm.
a bunch of burly men eating meat and sleeping on the ground, right? It's just a weird thing to say it that way, but it was amazing. So,
Well, I think one of the things that godly men um, have an uncanny ability to do is that they're able to turn their losses into lessons. And God has the ability to take our messes and turn them into messages. And, we're the most qualified to talk to somebody who has been or is going through exactly what we went through. And so, to your point, yes, we make a lot of poor decisions, and it wasn't God, that was leading us to make them. And there's consequences that come with those. But in the process of that, God's grace is always sufficient. And that test does become a testimony at some point. So irregardless of where you're at, guys, in your process as you're listening to that, at some point there will be a turning. And like it'll go from a test to a testimony. You'll feel like you're on the other side. And I just want to encourage you. A lot of times we want to roll our sleeves down and we want to hide our scars because we don't want anybody to know we've been hurt. But the reality is those scars are marks of God's grace and what he's brought you through. And those are the things you should never forget. And in the appropriate time, when he leads you, being able to share those, bring hope to other people. It's one thing to share in theory for somebody that's not been through anything.
yeah.
But
Well, I
man,
count it a
you've been through
blessing.
something. Yeah.
Well, I count it a blessing, and that's the weird part. Like, I get cold chills now. Like, that's been the hardest thing the last 6 years to really get to, is to count it as a blessing. But I count it as a blessing because I don't think a lot of people get to have that the revelation to look back of why this bad thing happened. Right?
Mhm.
If you get so fixated on the bad thing, like I doused myself in Psalm 37 and 73 for years. One with David and one with Asaph, and the one that just took me to my knees about 7 years ago. Like, I read, I could probably recite 73, but like when you get into verse like 16 through 18, and then you get into verse 21, but like the thing about it was when Asaph was writing that, and he's talking about the slippery feet amongst all the people that are prospering, because I'm a good person. It's a woe is me in my mind chapter. But he gets in there and he says, and then I walked into the tabernacle of God. Then I discerned their end. But when you get down to like verse 20 or 21, he says, and I realized I was a beast before you. That hurts, right? It's like
Mhm.
when I have to think about me being so prideful, so beast-like towards God for blaming him. Why did you take these kids out of my life? Like, once I finally found that out, it was like, wow, such a blessing that, yes, I lost my kids right now and I won't get to see them until they're 18, and that's just a few years away now, but it's a blessing because he put a hedge of protection around them. And not many people get to look back and have that revelation that God can line up and like keep counting up those breadcrumbs to say, this is where it started, John. Like, this is where you really screwed up. Tell the story. And that's really what I got out of camp this weekend is I've been telling the story. Now I've got courage to go and tell the story. I have to
Mhm.
tell the story. Somebody needs to hear this story because they're going through a very similar thing, and
Yeah.
why that they should try to work on their marriage. No matter, restoration can happen. And, one of the guys that I was talking to at camp was like, he had just went through something where his wife had cheated on him. And I'm going, listen, let's talk about this. Because I want to tell you, like, you've got a couple choices, right? And we were able to like share my story. He's like, wow. Like, I'm like, it's a ripple effect. Like, you got to make a decision. Biblically, you got to make a decision. And as a man, like, we can't be a beta male anymore. We have to make the right decision and follow what God's calling is. And anyway, so like, it was a blessing because of that, right? So now I've just got coming out of camp is like, I want to just share that story. I have to share what happened at that first moment of sin in my marriage. And don't get me wrong here, in my first marriage, I wasn't a perfect husband, right? I wasn't following, the the principles that I try to do now, and I still fail. But I wasn't as aligned as what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah.
But I had a decision that I should have made, and I made the wrong. And that will trickle through the rest of your life. And I found a lot of comfort in looking at what happened with the children of Israel when they left the promise, or when they're going to the promised land after they left Egypt. And Caleb, which I love, is the name of your son too. But he went in as a recon and comes back and says, we can take it, which I think that's really Caleb in real life, your son Caleb. But then everybody else is like, no, it's too big. And because of that sin, it seems a small sin. But because of that sin, that generation had to die off and they never got to see the promise. So it's a generational. So that's the thing, is like, be the one that breaks that generational curse.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a lot of that was happening. We're starting to see some of these testimonies. That's the power of that. You just don't know that one decision and how much that can change. So you've been on the leadership side now at camp. You've helped guide other men kind of through the adventure. What was it like watching God move in those moments around the fire and under the big top and in the quiet places when you heard him come back and talk about solitude?
Man,
What was it?
all I can say is the word amazing. Like, just the amazing grace that people felt. It's not a cliche, but like watching men fall on their face during praise and worship, it's just something you don't experience. Watching God move through a whole camp of 400 men or close to 400 men is like something you don't experience.
Yeah.
What I would say is, from the leadership point, was I felt ill-equipped at the same time, right? Because I'm like, this is some things I've never faced, right? I've never faced drug addiction. I've never faced some of these things. But when you break it down, I have faced it, right? We face some type of addiction, whether it would be sexual addiction or work addiction. Like, it could all be things that become an idol. To me, like, the idolatry is anything that is like between me and God right now. But I think it's a good thing to kind of get that distraction away, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, what I learned as a captain or as a leader there was that there's a lot more work to be done. And any man that's listening and thinking that he thinks that he might want to go, don't think about it. Just go. God put it on my heart to help as many men as I can and share it and bring it, and whatever it is to get people there, let's just get them there.
Yeah.
And God will do the rest of the work. Your job is just to get there.
Yeah. I was going through the prayer requests today. So, John was talking about these prayer requests get nailed to a cross, and then there's a group that goes out and they'll take them down over the course of the weekend and they pray over them. And so there's actually, sitting in the same room I'm in today, in an ammo box where we prayed over them the other day. Eventually they will end up in what he was referring to as the Crapper Chapel. And so for some of you guys don't know what we're talking about, it literally looks like an outhouse with a phone in it. And when you go set in there and you pick the phone up, it starts recording. And guys just go in there and they just begin to speak out loud what God's done for them over the weekend, maybe what he set them free from, or what their commitment is when they go back home. But on the walls are stapled the previous year's prayer requests. And so, eventually this thing will be wallpapered, in the prayer requests of men. And man, I looked through these, and, we talked about over the weekend, there was 4 predominant themes, but I think you could boil it down even more to almost 2. But I was amazed at how many guys were asking God for help to go home and lead their families, whether that was with their wife or their kids. We're in a dysfunctional society. And so a lot of us were raised in dysfunction, some more than others. And it's like, I know what I don't want to repeat if it's extreme. I don't want to be that. But what does it look like, to really be a godly dad? What's it really look like to be a godly husband? Which makes me, in June, for the first time, we're doing ManUp Camp. And I sat and I listened to some of the stories that were coming out of it, and some of the things their sons were asking and how they were excited about coming to camp. And then I remember listening to all these stories of these men that are jacked up in a lot of cases because dad was absent or he just didn't do it well. And it makes me wonder, man, what kind of stories are we going to tell coming out of that camp when you pull a father and a son together? And then there's that moment where God shows up. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what God does over that weekend. So, one of the things we talked a lot about in Man Up is that, we're not meant to be lone wolves. We're not meant to walk alone. I know you've led some big teams in business, and now you've led a team at camp. What have you learned about the power of brotherhood? Just having a band of brothers together.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one of the sermons too was having a corner man, which I don't think that you could have put it any better way. It's so beautifully put. So, and the way that I'll repeat some of the sermonary, but the way that you look at a corner man is like you're in there and you're boxing and you're fighting and you're out there and you come back and you bloody. It's the guy that's in your corner. He's cleaning up your wounds and he's helping you just get back at it and he's giving you that encouragement. So I think that's the thing. I think I won't go into a long story on this, but I learned a long time ago, God actually had spoke to me on a roof one day where I'd been injured in church, right? Like been asked to leave and all this other things. And I'm up there and I'm repairing this roof and I take my hammer and I smack my thumb and like it's this thumbnail here and the thumbnail just popped off and blood going everywhere. And so I grabbed it like this, right? I mean, and I just go, oh, man, it hurts. And I've just felt the Spirit of God and God actually speak to me and say, that's what my church is supposed to look like. And so I had this epiphany of like, wow, like if we're the body, right, why aren't our hands reaching? I mean, there's a song that has all that, but like what we do as Christians is when somebody gets injured or somebody gets hurt, we wind up cutting that thumb off. When what we should be doing is we come over here with these 5 and we envelop it and we stop that bleeding as fast as you can. Yeah. Right. So I think this is the best way to describe what a corner man is. And then these 5 go away. Okay, cool. You kind of healed up. You got some gauze on you. But these 4 have to pick up the slack and say, hey, man, you're going to be down a while. Right. And I just cut this finger off about 2 months ago. So I can tell you the real story on that. But so like the rest of my hand had to pick up the slack. Right. So if we're truly the body of Christ and we don't cut the thumb off because it makes a mistake, we envelop it. And we hug it and we pray over it and we lay hands on it. And we actually like try to help push it through. Instead of severing it off, we then pick up part of the slack. That, in my mind, that's what a corner man is. And I've had that epiphany probably in 2010, right? This is prior to me even having all these, other bad things that happen. So God speaks to you in different times of your life. But that's always stuck with me. It's like, to me, that's what a corner man is. Like, hey man, I got you. It's a bad day. I got you. And to me, that's what leaving that with is a band of brothers, because I think that the thing that we wind up conflating, right, is that we do become the sum of our closest 5, no matter what. The 5 influences, and that could be what you're listening to, what you're looking at on social media, the podcast that you're listening to, the music that you're listening to, the news that you're listening to, the brother down the street that you're listening to, the person at work you listen to. Whatever the closest 5 things that you're listening to is what you become. So what you consume is what you become. And so I think that's one of the most important things that we had the real conversation on with our our team of 10 is like, be careful what we consume. If you get over to where that you're consuming something, reach out. We're going to help you. Like, we're going to give you good things to consume. And we've already actually had that this week with one of the guys in our camp. He's like, I got to listening to this podcast and, it's not really like bad, but it's not really good. He's like, I just felt bad today. I'm like, it's what you consume. And so we kind of got back to that. And so just keep in mind that you become that sum of the 5. Yeah. And everything's an influence. Everything's an influence around you, whether we think so or not. And that's what the devil wants. Is just that, it's like what you pre-showed, just that one little acorn to get you away from it, to pull you away from the herd. Like, we're meant to be a band of brothers or a herd of deer, however you want to look. Like, we're meant to stay in a herd, right? That's why, like my daddy was a sheep farmer, so I can tell you a lot about sheep. Sheep are not real smart, and that's what the wolves will do. They cut one out to go sacrifice the one. That's what they want, one at a time, pick them off, right? The coyotes will come in and pick off one at a time. And that's what they try to do. But when the herd stays together, it's harder to pull that one out because they literally will flock together tight. And so I think there's a lot of embolism and symbolism there of shepherd and sheep and herd, because when you stay with the herd, it's harder for that coyote to cut you out of that, to cut you out and take you out. Right. But we're all followers and we're all followers of Christ, and we all need a shepherd. So I think that's also part of the symbolism with that. But like when you stick close to those band of brothers, like they're going to have your back. They're going to have your six and be able to look out and watch out for that coyote coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And guys, I just want to challenge you. We talked about this last time we were all together, but you need to locate those guys. You have to have those guys in your life. And then once you have them, you need to go find a church. And I realize, there's a lot of church hurt out there. And if you've been around church very long, somebody's miffed you, somebody's hurt you, somebody's disappointed you. But I mean, let's just be real for a minute. The church is full of dysfunctional people because they're full of imperfect people. And so it can't become the excuse on why you don't go. You'd be like, I don't want to go to the hospital because there's blood there sometimes. You go there because that's what the hospital's for. And the church really is that healing place for a hurting world. It's not a museum. Get it out of your head. It's not a museum with perfect people on display. And so you need to go do life. One, because that's what Jesus said to do. Two, you need to go because you don't need to just be a consumer. This is not just about what you get and what you take and what you consume. It's about what you can give, who you can help, where you can serve. That happens in a church. And the church becomes your spiritual family that forces you to grow. There's people in your family as you were growing up, you had to learn sometimes to tolerate, to get along with, to hold your tongue. There's sometimes that you fought with them, but at the end of the day, they were still blood. And spiritually, it's kind of the same concept. That family will grow you up. And the answer is not trying to go be a lone wolf and just, I have church for myself and I just kind of do my own thing. You're living below what God intended for you, and you're missing out on something super, super important in your life. So,
Man.
And you need to help other guys face their storms. And there's a lack of men in the church that are willing to stand up. And man, the church needs you, man. The church needs the guys that are listening today. So listen, I know you've had some success in business. I would say the most important thing you lead is your family. How's your time at camp impacted the way you're going to go home and love your wife and your grandkids, your kids, and your approach to business? I mean, what kind of influence did those 3 days have?
So I've always tried to pursue my wife, but I don't think I've ever done well at it. It's kind of like, we've all read I hope we all have read the book, the 5 love languages. Well, I know my wife's love language, but I don't always speak it. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to get her to see things from my point of view. I really pulled that away. And so like, even all the way home, like I know she loves flowers. Guys, all women like flowers, even if they tell you no. So I got her flowers, even on my way home. It was 11 o'clock at night and I stopped at the grocery store to bring her flowers. And so like, I decided like the main thing that I pulled out was we haven't been doing a good job at pulling digital out of our marriage. And so we're going to just go off grid at least one day a week, right? And every evening, and really just focus on each other. We've done a good job as far as like keeping, the intimacy in life and to treat each other well and to pray with each other, like all that stuff we've done well. But I think it's just one more step. And I think every year will be one more step. There should always be one more step. And to the point of, always pursuing my wife because we're built as conquerors. And I know you preached on that, but like, that's something that I've always said is like, we're hunters and gatherers and conquerors. Like, yep, I got this done. Now let's go do the career. Okay, now we got kids and now let's go do the next thing. Like, I think that we have to take time and continue to foster those things. And that's what I learned the most is that I'm not continually to foster like I should. With my grandkids as well. So like I was able to come home and all the grandkids were there and that was phenomenal. So, that was a cool thing and got to watch all the little tricycle motors run around. And at our new house in Kentucky, my wife was kind of challenging me because we kind of, the property's kind of over a hill and we put the the single wide trailer, like right there in the middle. And then I got a house seat that we cut out. And I said, well, I want gravel all the way around the thing. She said, why? I'm like, I want the kids to have a racetrack. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're going to put go-karts out there. Like, watch them just go around and around because eventually I'm going to pull that out there and, you don't have a house up there. So do you really want a racetrack? I'm like, well, yeah, like these boys, like we got 4 grandsons and 1 more on the way. I'm like, these boys got to have a place to go and just have fun. And so like, it's those little things that I'm like, you know what? It's like, I have to like let go of some of that and just learn to have fun again.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you can be too serious in that. And, the same in business, man. And you got to carry that in with your people. It's like, thou shalt not take thyself so serious, right? We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have a bad day. The thing I think that we did well before was that our team was ready to run through walls no matter what. And I can still pick up the phone and call any of them today, and they'd come back tomorrow and come to work and do anything that we wanted. So I think that's the impact.
Yeah. Talk directly to the guys listening today. Maybe they've never been to camp. They've seen some of the social media posts. They've heard stories. Maybe they've been invited to camp and they're just kind of still on the fence. Why should these guys come to Man Up next year?
It's a great question. I would say the number one reason to be there and the number one reason to not miss it is if you're really looking to have God move you inside of your life, this is the place where he definitely showed up at. I said it at the top of the show, but Saturday night was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced. Like, it's the most, like, I've seen a lot of things, but, when you can watch 400 men throw their hands up in praise and worship and men just falling on their face where God is speaking directly to them. If you're on the fence and you're like, hey man, like, how do I be a leader? How do I really lead my wife, lead my family, lead myself? And you want to be around other like-minded men that are, we're talking some big, burly, rugged men that you would never dream are going through the same problems that you are. We all have the same problems. And to be able to have that band of brothers that you walk away with is the number one reason why that you should be there. Is you're going to find a band of men that are going to lift you up and edify you and continue to after camp. And that's what I think is the most important part is the edification that you'll get out of it.
Yeah. That's good. Well, are you up for some rapid fire questions real quick as we close this thing out?
Man. Let's try it, I guess. Yeah, let's try it, man. Rapid fire stuff.
Short answers, big impact. Like, what's a Bible verse you feel like, man, this is the one that kind of anchors my life? It's my go-to.
Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. And I can't stop there because this is when I learned to find joy. So if you're suffering with anxiety and depression is looking back, anxiety is looking to the future. You find joy in the minute and in the moment.
Yeah,
that's the way that God had us designed. Sorry, that was quick. That was real quick, Terry.
No, that's good though. So, best piece of advice you heard while you were at camp?
Oh man, this isn't meant to flatter you, Terry, but burn the ships, man. That was the best piece of advice. Was that sermon was again, Saturday night, but burn the ships. So for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, you had to go all in. You can't have one foot on the dock and one foot in the boat. And if you've ever done that, you wind up, your legs start spreading apart and you fall in the water. So you got to make a decision. So burn the ships. And the sermon was about the Battle of Cortez. And when you don't have another choice but to go and fight, you're going to fight.
Find a way to win, don't you?
Find a way to win.
One lesson you learned as a husband and a father?
One, I can only pick one.
Well, it's supposed to be rapid here.
Patience and grace. Patience and grace. Yeah. Learning patience and grace, yeah.
Why is it so important to have cornermen in your life, you think?
Because when you're bleeding, you got to have somebody clean your brow. Because
Mm,
you're not going to be able to see. Your eyes are going to be swelled up. You need somebody else to help guide you out of that corner and back into the fight.
mm. Biggest mistake men make in trying to lead their families?
Pride. I'm the
Yeah.
man. I'm the man. No, Christ is
Mm,
king.
good. How do you personally stay grounded when life gets just really loud?
Oh, meditation, solitude time, like every morning from 6 to 7, just turns everything off and just start and open my day up that way. That's how I keep it as solid as what I can. Stay
Mm.
grounded.
Here's a big one. How do you want to be remembered? Like what kind of mark do you want to leave that can't be erased when this thing's over?
So rapid fire is going to be courageous. I haven't been known to be a courageous man. I've always been known as a person that would share my own experiences in the gospel, but now I want to be courageous enough to share with everybody I come in contact with.
It's good. Man, I appreciate you taking some time just to share your heart today. Share your story, share your experience. I know it's inspired me. I know it's bound to have done the same for guys out there. Guys, I just want to encourage you. Proverbs says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick," and I think what you've heard is um, tough times. You can push through that. There is a hope. You're not the only one that's dealing with a struggle. It's not unique to you. And here's a man who's had to push through a bunch of those, and he's on the other side helping other guys instead of wallowing around in self-pity and feeling sorry for himself. And I think that's the message for the man listening today. Literally man up. And man up is not just, hey, be tough, pound your chest. It's realizing you can't do it by yourself. That's why you need a savior. That's why we bow our knee to the God-man Jesus,
Amen.
asking for help, and then just be courageous and do what men do. And men do the hard things. Um, anyway, appreciate you being on the show with us today, buddy.
My man, yes, sir. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Listen, guys, don't wait for the storm to just pass. You need to face it head on and just be the man that God's called you to be. I encourage you to head over to manupadventurecamp.com. Go grab a copy of Post 30 or Mentality. Sign up, at least be a part of the daily devotion that goes out, some encouragement. Get connected, get connected to Man Up Nation, get connected to some guys around you. Find your cornermen. If you're having to do this thing alone, you're not doing it right, and you don't have to do that. Listen, guys, legacy is not what you leave to people. It's really what you leave in people. We'll see you next time on the ManUp Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the ManUp Podcast. We hope today's episode challenged and inspired you to become a better man, father, and husband. Remember, failure isn't final, and you're not alone on this journey. Find more resources at manupadventure.com. Stay connected with us, subscribe to our YouTube channel at ManUp Adventure Camp, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at ManUp Adventure, rate and review the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to help more men find their tribe. Thank you for being part of this movement. Let's continue to live on purpose and leave a mark that can't be erased.